You're probably noticing I'm in a very strange place right now. I'm at Carlos's office. I've left Ohio, and I'm on the road today, and I'm in Indiana. I didn't even know Indiana was a real state. I'll just be honest. I just thought it was what they had in the movies. So I'm joined by Zach, and Zach is the same gentleman that we had last week. However, there's a big difference. One, Zach has a camera, and two, Zach has a new headset. All right, guys. So we're not going to have any audio issues, and everything's going to be amazing. So today we're going to talk about automation. Now, the reason I have Zach here is, to be completely honest, Zach does a lot with automation. Now, I'm going to preface all of this by saying, if any of you guys do a lot with automation, please let me know. I would love for you guys to join us on mic, on camera, so we can all have a better, more productive conversation. However, we're gonna have a good one today. So, Zach, I'm just gonna ask you some questions first. Name of your company is AeroCMS. How long have you been in business?
Officially, a year.
Okay. And what did you do before this?
Before this, I worked for a ISP and telecommunications company that wanted to get into the managed services game. They had a break-fix consulting smallish division that really they kind of maintained because like local businesses just kept hassling them like, hey, what kind of server should I buy? Like, how can you set that up for me? We'll pay you. And they just kind of kept it going. And then after about 15, 18 years of that, they were like, you know what, we should look into this whole managed services thing. At the time, I was working for like in the large enterprise and was like burning out like really bad. And like a friend of mine was a wireless engineer for them and was like, hey, like we got this position where we're trying to figure this stuff out. Like, would you be interested? I did the interview. They were like, yeah, why not? So I spent about 5 years building a managed services business for them. Got to the point where they needed to either invest in growing it, hire people, hire more engineers, like get a sales staff going, like that point we all reach, right? Mm-hmm. And then, I had that come to Jesus meeting and I was like, all right, like now is the time. You either do this or stop doing it. And the decision was made that like, you know what, like our core business is internet and telecommunications. This is great. Like what you've done is awesome, but like, we've decided it's not really our core business. And so like, what can we do? And we negotiated for about a year and came up with a sort of transition plan where I would be laid off and they would step out of the IT game entirely and start referring all the existing customers to me. So I basically hit the ground running with a business and a customer base.
Let's be honest, you hit the jackpot is what you hit.
Right?
I mean, and when someone can start a practice, I mean, did you already have like monthly recurring revenue and everything?
Oh yeah, I had an RMM, I had everything. I didn't have a PSA at the time because we were using their stuff internally, which was a homebrew cold fusion ticket system that was absolutely awful, like as you would expect. It was not geared towards MSP stuff, and it was like one of my biggest pain points in developing that. And like that was one of the discussions in the Come to Jesus meeting is like, okay, like you need a real PSA, like you're buying me ConnectWise and like we're doing this, or I'm like, I don't want anything to do with your stupid ticket system. And but yeah, like I hit the jackpot. They gave
how many
me
endpoints did you start with? Managed endpoints.
390 something.
Okay, so we're just going to round up. So you had 400 endpoints when you took over and took the MSP to yourself, basically. And with that, how many endpoints are you at now? This is a year later, right?
300-ish. I mean, because remember, they didn't come with me. Like, they were really, really uncomfortable ethically of just like handing it over. So like what they did was they suspended that service and gave a certain amount of time for people to sort of prepare for that. So it was just like, hey, in 120 days, like, you don't get these services anymore. And like, we will stop doing that. Like, here is a list of people, including me, that can do them for you. And then I signed an agreement that says that I wouldn't contact them until 30 days after I left, or something like that. Because they gave them like 6 months to figure this out, and then kept me on for that entire period. Like, the day they stopped doing it officially it was my last day at the company. And that's what it was. I couldn't actively tell them that I was starting my own company until after my first day. So like, I had 120 days where like I couldn't call them, I couldn't say, hey, you should come with my company. And so I had about 6 months, and in that 6 months, that's when I got PSA. I got my own instances of the RMM. I got the LLC paperwork done. I got all of that stuff lined out, and I also have a couple of business partners. There's 3 of us in the company, and like, this is something we had talked about for years, the 3 of us doing this. And so when this opportunity came up, it's just like, look, they're cutting me loose, and they're going to cut these customers loose, and like, I get to do my own thing. They were 100% on board. So like, between me and the other 2, we have like an accountant and financial analyst who specializes in data analytics. The other guy is a software engineer and cybersecurity expert. His day job was doing pen testing and like malware analysis. It's like, I've been doing IT ops for ever. Virtualization, networking, all the standard IT guru stuff. Nice. And like, between the 3 of us, like, we have a really, really compelling capability set. So like, we have a strong position on cybersecurity. We have really great like financial analytics, and like, we can do that whole budget planning thing. And like, as part of VCIO, like, one of the major things like nobody does in their basic VCIO is like, oh, we'll help you tell you when you need new stuff. And like, no, we'll actually sit down at the beginning of the year and figure out a full IT budget. And we've been doing it about a year, and like, we were profitable after like, I think 4 months.
Very cool. So you're at 300-ish endpoints now, and that's essentially, you almost had to start from scratch because they wouldn't just hand the customers to you.
Right. And so like, there was a very, very rapid sales and acquisition process and onboarding process.
Good.
Because like, there was a lot of people who are like, oh my God, like, we need IT support. Like, we want to onboard immediately. And so like, that first 4 months, I onboarded probably 230 endpoints. In like 4 months. And then like, that was like the initial bunch that came over. And then the rest were like, they kind of explored their options. Some of them went in a different direction. Others like eventually came around to me, and I'm like, okay, because like, one of the big parts of it is I drastically increased prices. Like, drastically.
You said I loved that, by the way.
Yeah. And that was a tough thing to overcome, because one of the problems at the old company I had was they tried to price MSP like you would price phone and internet, if that makes sense. Like anybody who's ever tried to price a commodity like phone and internet, where there's low expectation and you're competing like on price a lot in a consumer space, you know, little old ladies and families and people who want to just get internet. Like, so there was profitability issues that I had identified, you know, over 5 years, and like that was, and so when I made the transition, it was like I'm not, you know, this isn't a side income. This is a primary business function. The quality of service is going to be much, much higher, and I'm going to, you know, charge an appropriate amount for this service. And a lot of people, like, because I'd had such a long relationship with them, they were like, yeah, whatever. We'll pay whatever you ask just to have access to you. Like, no questions. Others, like, I had to make an actual... right? Others I had to actually make like a sales pitch to and like make them understand like why I was charging more. And then as they kind of, and then, you know, referrals started coming from that, you know, and right now I'm like almost back up to where I was before.
Good for you. So, you know, we're talking about automation today, but I just wanted people to have a better understanding of, you know, who you are, where you come from, why I'm having you on to talk about this. So with automation, I know just from talking to you several times that you love to find ways to automate things. If you're going to do it, I would assume more than once, you want to script it somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like if it has even the potential, like I don't even know if it's going to happen a second time. Like I immediately put it in the, like, let's work on scripting this next, you know, for next time. We'll actually make a script that like we can execute. And if it comes up again, like, okay, great, apply a script, make it happen. You know, so we're huge fans of any sort of scripting, automation, orchestration, you know, deployment, standardizations. Like we're big into that.
And how do you determine, like, when do you sit down and say, I'm going to automate this? And right now we're not even talking about customer stuff. We're just talking about internal things. It might be customer facing, like how do I deploy XYZ software package? But when do you have that conversation between you, your partners, and anyone else you work with of, I think we should automate this?
Those are like the two one of the two questions I always ask myself whenever I do anything is, can this happen again? Can this be automated? Like that's always in my mind, is like a user calls me and says, my email broke. Can you take a look at it? Sure, I take a look at it, but in my mind, and I'm like, okay, what happened here? Will it happen again? And can I fix it when it happens automatically? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, but like I'm asking myself that every single time anything happens. And anytime I have to do anything, anytime I have to react to anything, like I'm always asking myself that question. And I have like full carte blanche to like try and automate whatever I can.
Got it. So can you give us some examples? I'm not asking for the scripts or the hows, okay? I'm just asking for examples of what have you seen in the past, I don't know, month or two. I don't know how frequently you decide when you're going to script something, but what have you seen recently that you've said, yes, I can automate this, and you've successfully made it happen?
Recently, there's not been a ton of things that have come up that I've had to automate, and that's one of the good things about this is the more you do it, the less you have to ask the question, and the less you have to decide to do it, because eventually you reach kind of an equilibrium where you've automated what can be automated. But okay, to give some examples of stuff that we did successfully automate, you know, Windows patching, right? Like how much time do people spend deploying patches and approving patches? That's pretty straightforward. Just about any RMM will be able to do that. Where it comes in is what happens when a patch fails. Like, what do you do? Well, you get onto the machine, you figure out why it failed. Well, I've learned over years and years and years that there's probably about 12 things that go wrong that cause patches to not install. Obviously,
what
there
are
are
those 12 things? We're going to list them off.
But my point is I wrote a script that just steps through the repairs of every single one of those things that can go wrong, right? Okay. Like it stops the WSUS service and then deletes the update local cache, and then that's step one or whatever, and then like it goes through and re-regs every DLL associated with absolutely anything to do with installing, scanning for, or dealing with patches or updates in any way. So like Windows Update Service DLLs, the bits service, WMI, Windows Installer, like just absolutely everything. There's like 40 or 50 different DLLs that like it gets run through and does a scripted re-reg DLL, blah, 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 blah. And then it runs through. Right, and so it runs through all of that, and then there's a few other things it does. Like I'd have to pull up the script and actually look at it to tell you what all it goes through. But it just chews through absolutely every single thing that can go wrong with, deploying or updates failing, and then when it's all done, it reboots the computer.
So I assume then that the grand scheme of things is you are a SolarWinds, do they call it SolarWinds MSP?
SolarWinds MSP RMM is the official name of this platform.
Can we just go back to GFI HoundMax SolarDog?
Sure.
That one makes a lot more sense. So you're with GFI HoundMax SolarDog, and so when a patch fails, does that kick the script off?
Yes.
Okay, so that kicks the script off.
If we get an alert, because it sends an email when patch such and such has failed on workstation blah, like we parse that. The RMM doesn't actually trigger that. It doesn't allow you to trigger off of that particular event. But it does send an email, and so like we get that email, which fires off a script that adds a task to RMM, to that workstation in RMM, schedules it to run, in a predefined window because it needs a reboot when you're done with this, runs the script, and then reboots, and then returns a success or failure. Because as many people have pointed out, like confirming whether scripts have run in SolarMax Hound Dog Labs, GFI,
it's GFI
is a bit problematic. GFI SolarMax Hound Dog, like people have pointed out that like it says that it runs a script, but it doesn't really run a script. That's sometimes true, and we've gotten around that by like doing our own error checking in the script and returning results. So like I can trigger the task to look for a specific return, like a return value of some code. And then, it can have a success or failure based on that return value from the script. So I can say, if I don't get like a return 0, everything was fine. If I get a return 1, then I know something broke. And then the task itself can trigger off of that.
Excellent. So that's a very nice example of something that you had a positive experience scripting. So now let's talk about something that you were like, can this be scripted? And you thought the answer was yes, but the answer was no.
There have been a few of those. Obviously, we don't do this in production, right? Like this is like yet another reason why we take like full disk image backups of every workstation, every server we touch, because I can go to my lab and I can restore that user's workstation or server, and then I can try crap on it, like automating, and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, I didn't break nothing. You know, I didn't cause any huge problems.
Not this time.
But if you're right, yeah, but but if it does work, then like we can push it out and like do a test. Like we'll manually run through it to make sure it behaved like it did in our test environment. And then if it worked well on that particular machine, we might move it to a different customer and do another manual test to see if it can solve a similar problem in a different location. And if we like it and like everything checks out, like then we'll push it as part of our standard template.
You always do a test on an in-house lab environment, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
And
what are some examples of things that you were like, can I script this? And the answer you knew was no.
I'm trying to think of some. Oh gosh.
That you can't think of a single thing you couldn't automate.
Well, I mean, like there were plenty where it was hard to do, but like not impossible. Obviously there are things that we like just know are impossible to do, so we don't even attempt. Like I can't Pixie boot a workstation that doesn't support Pixie, like, and we may have actually found a solution for that.
Okay. So what has been the one thing that you've automated that you can think of that saved you the most time?
I would actually say the backup or the patch deployment auto repair like probably had the biggest impact, and that's why I always cite it as a good example because like that's what takes a lot of time is, okay, patch is deployed, something broke, now we got to go fix it. Like that was eating a lot of time, especially at night, because we don't do that during the day. Like we wait for the patches to fail and then we go in and like like why did it fail? What does this mean? Like what do you typically do to fix this? And you dig through it, and you spend like 2-3 hours like dinking around with a workstation trying to get the updates to install. And that was very, very time consuming. And like, once we deployed that patch, like we just stopped doing that. Like occasionally there are still a workstation where just like updates straight up won't install. And generally we find it's because Windows is like really jacked up. That hasn't happened in like a really long time because like anything that's all where Windows acts all jacked up, like we do it just a nuke and pave and like we're done with it. Once we do a nuke and pave, like I use, SolarWinds backup and recovery to create like a golden like archival snapshot of the machine in a pristine state with applications installed. And so there's been a lot of cases where like I'll just restore that snapshot, get the machine back to a pristine state, then restore a file level backup from a later date, and everything's right back where it is. And like that's like the de facto response to when an automation fails, almost like at a workstation level. It's just like, oh, if the automation broke, something far worse than what we're seeing is wrong, so let's just untrust this machine and rebuild it. And it's very, very similar to Golden Imaging, but doesn't run into the volume license agreement problem because it's technically a backup and not an image.
Okay. Now, something that I have been slowly but surely scripting for my own business is one of my customers is a company that they've got a lot of churn of employees. So what we do is, anytime an employee leaves and a new employee comes, we kind of, set that set that computer up with a new profile, usually we don't wipe the computer. But sometimes we do, or sometimes they get a new computer. So one of the things I've been working on is scripting installations of all the software that they use. So I've got a script that will install Slack. And unfortunately, the way Slack was developed, it doesn't work until after the computer's been rebooted, but it will automatically install Slack when the user logs back in. I've got one that'll install Office 365. You can automate, I don't know why you would, but you can automate the deployment of that user's specific license of Office 365. It would just be a lot harder because you can't really, to my knowledge, you can't automate downloading their profiles Office 365 installer. Am I wrong, Zach?
It is really hard. I think it's possible, but we always just did like shared activation and like use that in the base.
Got it. Okay. So
that sounds like what you're basically doing.
Okay. So yeah, what I do is I just install the generic version. And from the generic version, then I just tell them, okay, open up Outlook, punch in your username and password. It'll get everything set up for you from there. Or I might even just log in and do it once I know everything's been installed. I've got, since I use Kaseya VSA, I can, whenever I deploy the agent for the first time on a new computer, it will force update because I've told it to do so. So it will run all the updates that I have approved, reboot as needed, keep running updates, keep rebooting, keep running updates. Basically do that all night long until the computer's ready to go. And you can even set up a blackout window. So let's say there are so many updates that I am positive it's not going to get done before this person comes into work the next day. Well, I can black out from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and it will not do anything. It will finish installing the update it's on, and it will not force a reboot until 7:01 p.m. And then it'll go back to doing what it needs to do. So yeah, there's just a lot that I've. Sorry, I'm looking through the chat. There's just a lot of little things that I've worked on scripting. I haven't done anything fancy like. I know with LabTech, for example, and probably with Kaseya and other things too, if you know how to work them, you can have it to where you can PowerShell script. If someone fills out this form, spin up an Azure server, email them the credentials, like all that stuff. I mean, when you sign up for a trial with LabTech, they're using LabTech to automate all of that and send it out to you. So I know that all of these things are possible. I'm just not there yet. With that said, I'd love to know some of the things that you guys have scripted. And quickly, I'm just going to go through the chat and make sure we've kind of answered everything. So Thomas said, beyond the foundational things like patching and disk cleanups, what are some automated tasks that have saved the most time? I know for me, it's those computer setups, installing all that software so I don't have to sit either in front of the computer or remotely on the computer and install all that stuff myself. How about for you, Zach? Okay, I think Zach's internet just dropped out. Awesome. Carlos, how about you?
I don't have a second microphone plugged in, so I can't really, but anyhow, my sound is coming through okay, I believe.
Yes.
Automation. So this is a really good one. You were talking about scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Easy script happened again this morning. We have a client that has an application developed by a third party on a regular basis, and they'll drop new builds on us like people change Pampers on a baby. So there'll be 2 or 3 builds in a day.
That sounds great.
So when we started this process, we were just copying and pasting the new one across the network because it's not something you have to install. It's just a matter of dropping the executable where it belongs. And what we've done now is we automate. We have a script that goes in, kills the process if it's running. So it searches for a process by the name of the executable, kills it if it's running. Actually, back up. It checks to see if the process is running. If it's running, it sends a pop-up to the screen of the user saying, hey, we need to upgrade the software. We're going to close this on you in a minute. So you have a minute to do whatever it is you need to do, but it's a minute. Either close now or we're going to close it for you within the next 55 seconds or so now. Right? So it starts a clock that ticks it down. And then after a minute, it kills the process, launches the copy of the new image, drops it into the user's executable, and then launches the process again as the user. So the user gets back to the screen where they're used to seeing it. So if they're away from the terminal and they left something not saved, they're going to lose whatever they didn't save. But they're supposed to be saving anyways, so sucks to be them if they don't, right?
That's so true.
But this happens on a regular basis. Right before I went to meet you guys for lunch, we had another one. So those drop in on us. We had one like at 7:30 this morning. I had another one right before I left for lunch. So I launched the script. One of my coworkers monitored it, make sure that it processed everything where it needed to process, and off to the races. So it seems trivial, right? But it saves a lot of time. Before we were just doing this by hand, and now
it saves a ton of time.
Now we just monitor a script. Did it do what it needed to do? So once we get success codes on all the computers that we know we need to check on, great. Add time to the ticket, close the ticket, on to the next thing.
Cool.
So it seems somewhat trivial, but every minute saved today is more time that I have to do other things besides work, or add more to my load so that I can make more money.
I like it. Andy, I know that you were on some phone calls. I did turn on your mic and camera ability, so I would love if you came on and shared some of the things you've done. David, I see, says new computers, onboarding through CentraStage, which AEM. I install printer, drivers, and ports, etc. with Win10 VBS scripts, creates local admin users, applications, ESET antivirus, changing power settings. He tries to do as much and save a lot of time as possible.
See, I do a lot of that with group policy.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily have to be talking about automation using an RMM. We're just talking about our automation in general. And group policy is a fantastic tool for helping you ensure that everyone in the company is doing things your way or the highway.
Exactly.
If they join that domain, if you lock down USB ports so that way they can't plug in a USB flash drive or an external hard drive of some sort, they can't do it. Now, Errol says domains might be on their way out. Why do you say that, Errol? Because I asked because even though things are starting to move to the cloud, Azure has domains and Active Directory and that type of stuff. So I don't see them going away anytime soon anyway. I mean, Carlos, any thoughts on that? You don't think they're going away, do you?
No way.
You don't have to come over here. I mean,
but the microphone is over here, so it's going to pick up my voice better. I don't think domains are going away anytime soon, especially in the enterprise level, right? So if you're talking about the mom and pop shop that has 2 or 3 computers, they shouldn't even have a domain to begin with, right? However, if you're talking about the local dentist that has 15 workstations, yeah, you better believe they're going to have domains because they need to have accountability of what happens on every single computer all the time because of HIPAA, right? So don't think for a minute that domains are going anywhere.
And that's kind of how I feel. So I'm giving webcam and mic permission to a few of you. So David, Pre-J, Errol, I'm going to turn it on for you guys, only just in case you guys want to pop in and speak. So just because I see you guys are the most vocal on here.
I see Earl saying that accountability will be an RMM thing or an Azure thing. And you got to remember that, especially for things like HIPAA or FINRA or the Fed or NCUA, those things are not going to fly. It's just not going to happen because the requirement for logging is on the onus for logging and monitoring those things is on the actual client itself, not on the RMM or the MSP that manages for them. And if you're saying Azure, well, guess what? Azure AD is still AD.
Yep.
It isn't.
Right.
I know that they're changing. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, they're changing the way Windows 10 connects a computer to the Azure AD versus a local AD. Right. And I don't disagree with you. I believe that local domains are going to be, the way of the dinosaur eventually.
Enterprise only.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be gone anytime soon. I think we still have till 2020. 30. I guess you think 30?
Oh yeah, at least.
I would say. Well, I guess 2020 is only a couple years away now, huh? Holy cow, I'm getting old. So I would say maybe 2025 is when Azure AD and more cloud-based computing stuff are going to, I wouldn't say be commonplace, because I still think there's going to be a lot of people running Server 2016 when we hit 2025, right? But I think it's still going to be, I think the cloud-based stuff will finally be acceptable.
I think that the Microsoft 365 Business or Enterprise with Azure Active Directory and a complete control dashboard right there for all the computers cannot come soon enough. That is what I'm looking for. And then, when you start using Windows Defender, when it's actually good enough to use, then we stop paying the third-party antivirus companies. It's just waiting for that Microsoft to bring it to that level. Literally just sitting around waiting.
Now, with that said, would you? How do I want to word this? Well, okay, I lost my thought. But Peter said, do you use things like Intune when implementing Azure AD?
Me? No. I've only done the basics with Azure AD, just because I know that the local domain is king still. So I haven't really done almost anything with Azure, waiting for it to become a complete takeover, which it's not now.
So one thing that I want to throw out there for you guys is, if you are not a Microsoft Action Pack subscriber, you should be. If you are an Action Pack subscriber and you're not utilizing the licensing that they have provided to you, you should be. And the reason I say that, one of the things you get as an Action Pack subscriber, which I want to say is ballpark $400 to $500 a year, one of the things you get is $100 of Azure credit every month. So that gives you the ability to use Azure as a test environment, even if you're just using it internally to figure out how to write some scripting or figure out how to use Intune or anything else like that. Use those Azure credits. Another thing you get with Action Pack, just since I'm on the topic, is you get 5 licenses of Microsoft Office 365 E3. And you get, I don't know if it's 5 or 10 or 1 or whatever anymore, but you also get licensing for Windows 10 Pro. I believe you get a license for 10 Enterprise, Office 2016 Pro Plus. I mean, they've got a lot that you get access to. So, and also a bunch of in-house server applications. Now, all of that stuff is supposed to be for internal use, okay? So you're not supposed to take that Action Pack license, toss it on a customer computer. You should be using retail, SPLA, volume licensing, anything but Action Pack when it comes to customer equipment. So if you need a place to test, you've got Azure, you've got Action Pack software, you have a wealth of places that you can go and create your own test environment without having to go out and buy a bunch of hardware or set up old computers in your office and find space for them, things like that. So I hope that helps for some of the guys that haven't thought of that. Errol, are you using Action Pack?
No, I'm not. Just because when I do my test environments, my CSP is SureWeb. So I literally just create a new client, tick on 10 Office 365 subscriptions and whatnot, and go to town that way. Maybe through virtual machines, or like you said, having machines laid out on our bench. We do a lot of hardware as a service, so we got the space for it. So Action Pack sounds good.
It's a great place for you to at least do some in-house testing, just like Zach was saying earlier. They test things in-house before they deploy it live to a customer. Well, at least with the Azure Action Pack subscription, which is included, you get that $100 included. At least you've got that place to do your testing. Andre, to answer your question, it is my understanding Microsoft has done away with Action Pack discount coupon codes. They did go away in August. My understanding, what I was told by a Microsoft rep, that they are not bringing them back. That could change. It's just, as of right now, they're not planning on adding any new ones. If you got in on Action Pack over the last few years, though, they actually had coupons. They would have like 2 or 3 coupons all at once. And they had it to where you could stack the coupons so that, $400 something, $500 something Action Pack, I was getting for like $120. So just a little bit more than the cost of Azure for 1 month. And I had it for a year and E3 and everything else. So Prejay says, Autopilot and Azure AD joins a device to Active Directory, and then he uses Intune to install the RMM scripts in there. I assume scripts in the RMM to enable antivirus, BitLocker, install apps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At some point, we can do this all through Intune. He said this is only for a couple of test cases where we're trying to do total self-provision. Turn on the computer, connect it to the network, put in your credentials, and you're done. And that does sound really great.
Yeah.
I would just personally hate to have another tool. You said you're using, I don't know if Autopilot is a software, if it's just something that's built in a new build of Windows 10. I would hate to have to use Intune along with an RMM, unless you're thinking you're going to get rid of your RMM for Intune. I do agree with that to an extent, Johnny. Johnny, would you like to come on cam and mic? Because I imagine you're going to be pretty vocal with some of the things we have to say. But Johnny thinks that it's going to kill the MSP models in the long run. I agree with that to an extent. But the small companies, the 30 less, they don't know how to do any of that stuff. Now, Johnny, when you come on webcam and mic, do we still need to call you Johnny? All right, so I just sent him a request to turn that stuff on, so hopefully he'll have access to do that.
I'd be interested in hearing more about his Intune experience.
Well, Intune is Prejay. I tried giving it to Prejay. I don't think he accepted.
Johnny also said Intune will kill the MSP model. I wanted to hear more about that. Yeah, I'm very interested to hear what both of them have to say on Intune, SCCM, what they've had successes with, what their fears are, all of that. Keep the questions coming, guys, because we're talking automation. So Intune and all that. I mean, we are talking automation when it comes to joining a computer to the domain. We're just not talking about automation using your RMM tool right now. But it's okay. It's okay. Autopilot is for automatically joining devices to Azure AD, assuming they've been bought from HP, Lenovo, etc.
Pre-J believes Intune will kill RMM, but it's a long way away for now. It has only just been able to run PowerShell scripts.
It seems like everything with Microsoft is a long, far away. You know, it's like I want to use OneDrive to replace a Dropbox or Box, but that's far away. You know, it's like, I don't know. Why is everything so far away? We're paying for it anyway. We have to pay for all these extra tools that are seemingly included with 365. It's always drove me crazy.
Well, and then look at this too. I mean, they've now made Windows a subscription model for enterprise people. And I'm sure Microsoft is dominating Dropbox with their OneDrive for Business.
Yeah, right. You just can't type the pound letter inside of any of your file names or it screws up.
Or you can't have more than what, like 40,000 period at all? Speaking of OneDrive, can't you accomplish what you get with Dropbox using SharePoint? You can.
SharePoint is not a file dump, though. That's what all I know about that. You just, Dropbox, you drop everything in there, right? SharePoint, you're not supposed to do that. I don't have any details why.
So the problem that people experience, OneDrive for Business is not really OneDrive. Oh, hey there, Johnny. Can we call you by your real name now?
Yeah, you can go for it.
Okay, Shiva is our next guest here, and we only get half of his face. I would like a full Johnny Walker, please.
That's weird.
All right, so Shiva, what is your thought when it comes to Intune and all that stuff killing RMM?
I think Microsoft is just slowly building up their entire portfolio, Intune, SCCM, to take over that of the RMM. Obviously, the proliferation is going to be in the enterprise, and it's only a matter of time before you get the trickle-down effect to the SMB, where I think maybe the ConnectWise, Autotask, and what have you will be replaced by these tools. We've seen how well Microsoft has developed their tools in the past. And it's literally just, as you said earlier, inputting your credentials, and it pulls everything down. Azure's there.
Arnie this?
I'm sorry?
Have you told Arnie what you just said?
No,
about things like ConnectWise going away?
But these are the tools I've been using for my enterprise clients for the last couple of years. You know, I've only came to the MSP world in June of this year. I've already switched my RMM from SolarWinds to ConnectWise. I love it. It's a great product. But, when I have enterprise clients who are nonprofits that will get stuff from Microsoft for less than any other software out there, what's forcing me to use the traditional RMM model to administer their networks?
So
lack of features?
If you look at SCCM and Intune right now, I think they probably have more feature sets than most RMMs that work.
Does the patching actually work with SCCM?
It works better than any of our patching tools that we have available to us in the MSP market.
So talk to me about SCCM and Intune and all that other stuff. Do they have a cost associated with them?
All of my clients are nonprofits, so they buy it themselves. And my flavor of break fix, which I know is a dirty word to most of you guys here, is we charge time and material. To be my client, you take one of my guys in-house 32 to 40 hours a week at X dollars per hour, and utilize them as you will, and he will also quarterback, so to speak, your internal help desk. I can get you what pricing is on Intune and what have you, but it's a very stable platform that extends your reach relatively infinitely to what you have to do in the enterprise.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Andy would like an espresso. And Pre-J says all the RMM providers know it. That's why they're adding in all these other features and integrations, like the AutoTask data merger.
I would agree with that. But so what platform is everyone going to right now? To be the virtual
ConnectWise.
No. What platform is everyone going to as their infrastructure? Meaning MSPs. Pre-J just said it. It's Azure.
Amazon.
So, yes, but
yeah,
Azure has been growing at a faster rate than AWS for this kind of stuff. So
plus Azure is familiar.
Now, once we get comfortable,
really complicated.
Once we get comfortable with Azure and everything that is Azure, it's only logical for us to bite the bullet and ditch the ConnectWise, the AutoTask, the Kaseya, and what have you, and go for a single ecosystem. Microsoft Windows isn't going anywhere. Everyone thought it would, when 7 came out, Vista, and all these other guys. To me, they've just gotten stronger. Microsoft. Sorry, go ahead.
Does anyone know of a timeline on features Microsoft has for Intune, Azure? I feel like I'm going to switch to ConnectWise and sink, thousands of dollars into resources and time, only next summer to find out they've boosted their platform and it's good.
So here's the thing, right? We can always play the waiting game and say, what if? But how much, what's your PSA right now?
A Tera. That's why I'm looking to switch.
How much money are you leaving on the table via automation and workflows with a Tera versus even something that's like Enable? So
I don't know when.
If you can extract value out of it now and give yourself more range, make the change. If and when Microsoft comes out with their product, go for it. Do it if you think it suits your needs. Most people will complain about the price of an RMM tool per agent or what have you. But when you look at what you should be charging and what you pay for this stuff, it's in line to create a profitable business for you.
Sure. I just don't want to be like Steve and switching every 3 months.
You know what? Maybe him switching helps the rest of us to decide where we want to be. I mean, you take him switching every 3 months, you learn that
you don't have to.
You learn that all these platforms have their misgivings. No one platform is good. It's just a matter of which one you can deal with in the long term.
And I'll be completely honest. Do you know why I don't stick with a tool and I keep switching every, 3 to 4 days or however long you guys want to say I do it this time?
What time is it?
Yeah, what time is it? I'll tell you what RMM I'm on. I don't want to sell. I don't. I hate reaching out and selling people. I want people to contact me and buy, but I don't want to sell.
In the vein of that, I've been fortunate where the bulk of my clients pre-MSP have pretty much all been referral. Not many were actually gotten by me going out and getting anything. I think if you do a really good job, and excuse my language, you don't offer any bullshit excuses for anything, your clients will be your best salespeople. And once you get to that point, you should be okay.
I'm going to turn off my webcam.
So I can't voice
Andy
chat
can turn his
things.
on. Everyone knows what I look like. Let's let them look at you three. You're much more handsome than I am, all three of you. Maybe not Errol, but
Errol was wearing a shirt today.
Errol's all dressed up.
Yeah.
Oh, I was in downtown Chicago.
You gotta look good there.
So let's try and get back on track here. Automation. So now that we have the three of you to talk about what what your strategy is when it comes to when to automate, what to automate, that type of stuff. Errol, can you start? Because and this isn't me picking on you. It's because I know for a fact, because you're on Atera, you are limited. Your hands are literally tied with how much you can automate.
Well, the reason why I joined this webinar specifically is because 90% of what I do with Atera is really just the monitoring and alerting. I almost have nothing on automation. And I learned the hard way, putting together a 100-person law firm with all brand new stuff over a weekend where so much could have been automated, but my days were instead 20 hours each, and the project went long. So what I've been doing recently, of course, is hanging out in the fishbowl and asking questions. But watching the third wall video and the features there, that how it integrates and connectifies, is like the most awesome of automation I've seen. But this is coming from a guy who's not seen a lot of automation. I'm not necessarily selling the product, but when this thing runs scripts and monitors the scripts, and it's all about security, that's my favorite thing so far.
I mean, one of the biggest things with anybody is or any MSP is being able to spread yourself as much as possible without hiring another employee. And I hate to say it like that, but we're in the business of making money, and we're in the business of making sure we retain that money. I mean, we can make a $10,000 a month contract and have 30 employees to service that contract, and we're not making a dime. And that's where the beauty of automation comes in at. I mean, my biggest client's 100 employees. I manage every single one of their machines, right? I turn on that machine, I install the LabTech agent, and it goes through and installs every single piece of software product that they use, and from a baseline. And then if they require customized software, that's when I come in and work with that. But the most of the time, I just turn it on. It installs everything that they need from the get-go. I don't touch a thing other than let it sit, turn the computer on, do the initial setup, install the agent, and let it sit for 30 minutes to do its own business. And that's it. So, I mean,
What, Andy, what's 2 or 3 things that you automate for every new employee, new build, new setup?
So there's a line of business application that can be installed. And basically it's a very custom line of business application that interfaces with a Linux system. So there's an application that runs an SSH thing, but it's got to have a customized, SSL cert key for each in person. So our SSH server, or that client's SSH server, for example, it runs, you can only have a certificate to connect. So that certificate's automatically generated. The software package that's used to connect to the SSH server is automatically installed. It's then automatically configured to connect to the server with all the pre-installed settings that are required for the software package to run and operate correctly. And the certificate is then also put on the end user's machine. And then basically all I have to do is say, oh, here's your passphrase, here's your user, and that's it. There should be no reason at all to waste time on any form of software installation if it can be automated. So there's, I mean, automates AV installation.
Script, will it alert you?
Oh, repeat that, Errol.
If it fails to launch the script, or it will alert you?
Yes.
Or the software fails to install? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, basic apps like Pre-J said, antivirus, Adobe Reader, Chrome. I use Ninite, and any workstation, it automatically installs Adobe Reader DC, I think is the newest version or whatever.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got another question then.
Go ahead.
We're mostly talking about new user rollouts. What are you guys automating top 2 or 3 things for their companies with no turnaround. Like, let's say there's 30 users and they all been working there a long time. What else? Because we're like focusing on new rollouts mainly.
Right. Well, go ahead.
Yes. You're looking at computer reboots, running updates, making sure everyone has what you would call a white list of applications on there, no junkware, clearing internet caches or what have you so they don't get too large over time. It's pretty much everything that you need to do to standardize every user across all of your clients. I mean, no matter how special a client is, at the end of the day, you're only profitable if every user at every client is at the same level.
Mm-hmm. Any offices that I mess with now, all of those have folder redirection enabled and offline sync. Because basically, if you can automate effectively the end user's computer should not be a point of failure. In fact, in terms of data loss.
One of the things that I've started doing, and honestly, I've really just started testing it with myself. I have, let's just say it's E3 or Business Premium or whatever, the version of Office 365, which includes OneDrive for Business. So I started doing folder redirection since I do not have a domain from C:/users into the OneDrive. So I made a Steve folder in my OneDrive and, documents, desktop, downloads, music, movies, pictures, all of that synchronizes to OneDrive, which is really cool because I've also got a desktop at home and a laptop that I use for travel. And all of those files synchronize between all of those systems. So I agree completely that folder redirection is important. In fact, I believe it's so important that it should be done even when you don't have an in-house server to redirect these folders to.
I think basically the point of all this automation, what have you, or one of the points is the user workstation has to just become a portal. Nothing really gets saved on there. And regardless of what they're doing, you're turning everything they use into software as a service, so to speak. Computer goes down, throw a new one in there, launch your onboarding script on it, and get them up and running again within an hour. I mean, that's realistically what they want. It's realistically what they need.
For each of our hardware as a service clients, we have the same hardware type machines, desktops and laptops in their server room turned on so we can remote right into them, start the replacement. After 30, 40 minutes, can't fix the computer issue. We already have another tech in the back end starting them on the backup machine for a quick swap,
right?
Which would include the redirection as well. But
yeah, I mean, I
firmly believe in the cloud redirection, like OneDrive or Box, as in now they can do a dual synchronization if they have a laptop and a desktop. And I guess they could do that with folder direction to a server, but if they're gone for a while with the laptop, that may or may not work. I don't know if they don't connect to the server. So the cloud is always connected. We kind of believe in doing it that way. And then it works for the clients without a server as well.
Speaking of the cloud, that's where I think Azure is going to come in and where Microsoft is going to take over a lot of the market. Because,
I could see that.
Get that OneDrive working.
Whether you call it OneDrive or not, you're still going to Azure at some point.
Yeah, I could see that.
Out. So one of the things I have not played with yet is Azure AD. That's on my list of things that I was supposed to test this year and didn't take the time.
So
it's really finicky to me.
Azure AD is nice in theory, and I think they'll get there. But my question to you is, with SPLA and all these other options, why not just put a domain controller in Azure and call it a day?
Yep, and then run a VPN to their on-site location.
Exactly.
I looked into this heavily the past couple months for a client of mine with Azure AD, and I it was very hard for me to find a good reason to pay them the egregious amounts of money that they want for that, versus rolling your own Hyper-V VM on site, or even rolling your own Hyper-V VM in the same data center as wherever they're going to be hosting their primary servers at. SPLA is really cheap. SPLA is dirt cheap. And if you do SPLA correctly, well, you got unlimited user. You don't have to pay for client access licenses. It's a no-brainer in certain regards.
I think in regards to Azure Active Directory services, it's not cheap because they don't want a lot of users right now. I think they're still in their developmental cycle and flushing it out. And they don't want 100,000 users, 300,000 users calling in for tickets. The price is there to make the barrier to entry higher, where they can focus on working with larger enterprise clients. And once they can scale it for the guys who want to pay less, they will. It's just part of their dev cycle, I would say.
Yep. I agree.
I feel like if Azure Active Directory,
gosh, where's this going?
Junk Cloud and Policy Pack had a three-way and had a baby, I'd be a perfect world. That's what I think. Those three combined would be great. One dashboard, one area, one price.
Am I hearing a Captain Planet reference in there somewhere?
So, I heard you mentioned the Third Wall webinar. So for those of you that don't know, I did a webinar, was it last month or 2 months ago now?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, so there's a company called Third Wall. Their domain is third-wall.com.
Maybe.
If one of you guys could put it in the chat while I'm talking, that'd be awesome. So Third Wall is a plugin that helps you do operational cybersecurity through LabTech. One of the creators of Third Wall is one of the creators from LabTech. And he left LabTech after ConnectWise took over. No hard feelings or anything. But he wanted to, retire with his bazillions of dollars because LabTech's so awesome, right? And then he got bored being retired, so he made Third Wall. And Third Wall is more than just things that you can script through LabTech, because from what I've gathered, how it works is you say, Andy, give me a couple examples of some of the things that you've enabled with Third Wall. I know it's got no flash drives through USB.
Yeah, I'll pull up a client here.
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. It's got so many cool things it does.
Give me 2 seconds. It's pulling up. Oh wait, I need it at the location level.
I just watched the whole YouTube video. Yeah.
It's got a lot of security features built in. I mean, you can rename the local administrator account, force it to be something else. You can administratively set the administrator password for all devices at that location. I mean, you can set a minimum. If you don't have a domain controller controlling it, you can set a minimum local password length, also a maximum password age. You can force complexity or not, force a password whenever the screensaver comes back on. And mind you, even if the end user is able to turn these things off, which they can't because they're set by the local security policy management.
Just real quick,
they're enforced.
What happens
is
one
of the nice things about that is
computer agent checks in with LabTech server. It's checking to see, are my settings still in place? So that's what it means by enforced. And if they are still in place, great. If not, then it goes and changes them again.
Yep. Yep. And one of the other couple of nice things for operating system security is basically you can disable the Windows 10 keylogger. Force enabling of Smart Screen. I know some of you guys don't like Internet Explorer or Edge, but in the corporate environment, a lot of the websites are built for Internet Explorer And so that's there. You can actually disable universal plug and play, which is a pretty nice one. Basically force Windows to never do that. But there's a whole host of other options and things through here. But one of the key features of it is that if you have a compliance or regulatory compliance stuff, and you can say, yes, I enable these features on this date, and yes, they have been enforced since this date. And if you need to temporarily disable those for technicians, you can disable them temporarily on a timed limit for the just that one device. So the technician can, okay, I need to be able to plug in a USB drive, or I need to be able to read from a CD. I can disable it for the next hour, do my work, and it'll automatically re-enable itself, thus not breaking the compliance issues. There's a lot of very nice things for that. One of the big things that I really like about it is it also includes the ability to monitor for ransomware. And what it does is it puts out a bunch of dummy files, and it'll go through and it'll check these dummy files periodically. And I think it even uses some NTFS hooks to say, basically on file access or on file change, perform an action. And what it does is it'll say, if this file is ever changed, and we don't care how it's changed, if it's changed, we believe it's going to be ransomware related. And you can actually have it set to disable the internet connectivity on the device, disable the local network connectivity on the device, kick off an antivirus scan, and a whole host of other things. There's a lot of very, very, very nice security-orientated features in there that, if utilized properly, can very effectively reduce the amount of tickets, the amount of calls, and the amount of work that we effectively have to do.
Are you using any fun plugins with LabTech?
I'm using Third Wall right now, Sophos, and that's pretty much it for the security side.
It is insane the number of plugins that are available on LabTech. Absolutely insane.
Oh yeah.
They have an active community, and they pretty much integrate with everything MSP centric.
Mm-hmm. Now, so for those of you that are like, man, I just hate LabTech, what else is there? It's okay, guys. There's something out there for you too.
So I think the top of the food chain, you're looking at LabTech. You're looking at the ConnectWise suite, or you're looking at Kaseya?
My recommendation is, if you don't like LabTech, then you should look at Kaseya. And the reason I say look at Kaseya, obviously, I know a guy that can get you an amazing deal on Kaseya, and two, it is powerful. And even though they don't have a bazillion plugins out there, there is a plugin called MSP Assist available for Kaseya. What MSP Assist does is it basically helps automate creating all of your policies, procedures, scripts, everything. If you say, I want to know if a hard drive's failing, it like has a list of all of the different it has a list of all of the different like event IDs it's aware of, and I believe it's got it all separated out, so you can even just kind of search through them and figure out what event IDs you care to monitor. So let's see. Prejay said, don't forget SolarWinds. I didn't forget SolarWinds.
I did. I left them. It's just not, SolarWinds is not going to take me to where I would like to be as an MSP. The level, sorry, go back. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I didn't forget SolarWinds. I just would not place it up at the same level as Kaseya and LabTech. I do not believe it's the same caliber.
I would agree with you. I think that if MSP is your career, you should probably be with the ConnectWise family or the Kaseya family. I think if you're going to anything else, you're wasting everyone's time.
Mm-hmm. Autotask is up there.
Not really.
I don't know if you heard. So Carlos came back in the room when my camera was still off, and now John Dyes is here too. And John Dyes believes that I don't like Autotask anymore. That's not true. I really like Autotask.
I think the barrier to entry for Kaseya
Shiva doesn't like it now.
the
So
barrier to entry for
it's not
Kaseya-
that I don't like Autotask. Because of the Too Good to Be True deal that I got for Kaseya and Kaseya's PSA, I couldn't pass it up. My costs went down between PSA, RMM, and antivirus. My costs went down. I'm paying a 30 to 40% of what I was. I mean, it's nuts. And I've got sub 100 agents. So
I think, as I was saying, the only barrier to entry for Kaseya is you need someone to help you set it up from scratch.
And that's what
It's a blank slate. And that's what makes it hard to like or get into. But if you have that support, and I believe, Steve, you mentioned some thing that basically gives you managed Kaseya.
So, MSP Assist. It's not entirely, I mean, you're still doing it yourself, but they have...
There's a resource.
Yeah, they've found a way to make it super awesome. Now, with that said, though, you are familiar with a resource for lab tech, are you not?
I am. I was looking for a consultant before I purchased my lab tech, and because I figured I just wanted to get up and running in a month and be fully configured, and my consultant got me there. I could have probably spent 2 months, 3 months learning the system, getting to where I need to be, but that's money I would be losing with lack of automation. So I spent it up front, and I personally saw the value in maintaining that subscription. So I'm still managed ConnectWise LabTech. And Robert from Third Wall even said that the consultant I chose, I could not have gone a better way because he probably knows more than most of the people over at LabTech at this point.
And with that said, are you willing to share the website for your consultant?
Yeah, it's Comprehensive MSP. His name is Brian, and he does a fantastic job. Tell him I sent you. That way I can try to beat him down for a discount on my stuff.
There you go.
You'll get full price, but I want my discount. But one of the reasons I really like him is this is his business, right? He's not out there working for an MSP or doing other stuff. His job is managed ConnectWise family. So,
hey, I wonder if I could talk to Brian and do like a group buy.
Don't dilute my guy, man. It's, you know what, with what he charges, and I'm not going to go into it because I think it's his business to tell people what he charges. It's cost effective, and for what you will get out of it, you shouldn't haggle on the price. And that's just my opinion. If you want him to be there tomorrow,
it's not much more than a nice client portal. If you want to be realistic about it,
define nice client portal.
Anyway, so
are you talking about the one Andy and I are going to make?
That's right.
No, I was talking about the VoIP company that I'm working with.
Okay.
So we only have a few minutes left. Do you two have anything you want to share? Last words of wisdom?
Automate everything. If a script can be run for it, get it done, because it will save you time, money, and resources. And everyone speaks about getting their ticket count down. If it's automated and automated well, your ticket count will go down.
Yes.
Except for those people who lock themselves out of their computers, which you can't fix that.
Are you saying you can't fix stupid?
I'm saying you can't fix certain users who have certain habits.
Yeah.
I will say you cannot fix stupid. I will absolutely step up to the plate and say, you can't fix stupid.
Carlos, can you have any last words of wisdom for the folks here?
For what?
When it comes to automation.
Automate the hell out of everything.
So exactly what Shiva just said.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just
Automate all the things.
So
All of the things.
If you can automate having your water refilled in your glass, do it because it saves you time.
So
every moment you save in your life is time you can use either to make more money or to have a better life. And that's the whole point of technology, right? So we're trying to get things done easier, cheaper, better. So why are we slaves to our technology business? We shouldn't be. The technology business should be our slave.
Yep.
Correct. Now, I'll give you an example here. The current ratio of technicians in my company to clients is probably 125 users to one technician. And the only reason that ratio is so poor is because I switched over from break fix to MSP and I refuse to fire my technicians. I'd rather grow to get them to a point where there are 300 or 400 users per technician.
So that's a pretty admirable thing to do.
But
so I want to follow that, and I know you have more to say. I'm sorry. So when it comes to automation, it's never too soon to automate it. Okay, 'cause right now you have you have a nice low ratio, 125 users to one tech. We'll even say 150. That's a nice low ratio. That means each tech shouldn't be, I would say each tech shouldn't be more than like 50% utilized if you have things automated correctly.
They're below that at this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
We're getting maybe 3 tickets a user right now, a month.
Yeah. And that's honestly, I mean, that's nothing. However, that means now is a fantastic time to automate all the things. Now you have a strategic advantage because you have a consultant that you literally say, I want a script. And he says, here.
There you go.
For other folks like myself, I'm waiting on the MSP Assist to get deployed, and then I'll have all my scripts.
It's
guys
about finding the right resources.
Yeah. Other guys are just fantastic at writing PowerShell scripts, so maybe they just need to write it themselves. Well, right now, no, Errol. Right now is the best time to do the automation because right now you're thinking about it.
Well, here's the thing, right? Take Andy, for instance, here. With his team, he's got a tremendous ratio of users to technicians right now. And he's basically set himself up for strategic and strong growth. If he adds another user, I'm sure it's going to be at a point where he's at maybe 150% of his utilization because he's setting it up for with the automation that he has in place right now. But that's my two cents.
And to piggyback off of what David said, another great reason that you might want to go with the ConnectWise suite. You can automate everything in the world. You could automate wiping your bottom after going to the bathroom. But if the client doesn't see the value in what you're doing, then they're going to fire you.
So what we did, and this is something I picked up on the Discord to give them credit, and we have our internal service desk user in ConnectWise and LabTech.
I bet you're about to say what I'm going to say.
And this tech of mine racks up so many what would have been so many billable hours that it gets dumped into a report and sent to the client. And the client sees a big fat 0 next to hours and hours of work.
Yep.
And that's the thing. LabTech can actually post a time entry for things that it automates with its scripts to a ConnectWise ticket.
Yep.
So that is a huge, huge benefit for LabTech and ConnectWise. That I'll even say LabTech has everyone beat when it comes to that. So with that said, if you were to say, okay, I know it typically takes me 5 minutes to do a disk cleanup, and that's assuming I walk away while that stupid bar goes across the screen for a little bit, right? So now you can have your disk cleanup script where it just adds 5 minutes to the ticket.
I do 15-minute increments, and I'll tell you why.
I'm just giving people a number. I'm not saying that one number is
my billable amount of time.
Right. No. But the reason I do a minimum 15-minute per script is because you have to consider the amount of time it takes you to get to the point where you're going to fix it, where you verify it, where you do everything else. And if you're doing all that through automation, then it's fair to put that kind of time entry into something. Because it may take the task 5 minutes to run, but you also have to consider how much time it took you to get to the point of running the task and when the task was finished to wrap up the ticket.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And not only that, but typically, like for most of us that do remote support, I mean, it's either minimum billable in increments, either 15 or 30 minutes.
Right.
And so usually what I'll say is I don't care what I'm doing. It's a minimum of 15 minutes. And so if that script runs, and it's automated, okay, that's 15 minutes. That would be typically billed to the end client.
The perfect analogy is, you go for an oil change in your car, whether it takes them an hour or 5 minutes, you're still going to pay $30 or whatever it is you pay for an oil change. It doesn't matter how they do it. You're paying for the end result, not the service.
Yep. So, and I know there's probably lots of other questions. Pre-J said, what about the time entries for when automation fails? There's...
How would automation fail?
so I mean, there's a lot of
if it fails, it's halftime.
There's a lot of what ifs, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the automation shouldn't be costing them anything because it's all included in the managed services agreement, right? So who cares? Who cares if you put 1 hour or 5 minutes, as long as it's a believable amount of time?
One thing we do is if the automations are running after hours, it's billed at the after hours rate, which is time and a half.
Nice.
Not that they have to pay for it, but
but
they see a dollar amount that they would have had to pay for something like that.
And that's phenomenal, man. So what it sounds like is Shiva, you, sir, are doing all the things right. And Andy is doing
most of them right.
I was just gonna let you fill in the blank, Andy.
Most of them right.
You know what it is, right? It's what I've been lucky. I found Discord. I found the Zoom room very early in my MSP career, which is all of 5 months at this point. If you just sit back and listen to what everyone has to say, eventually you'll be able to parse what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
The two pieces of advice I'd ever give anyone is buy the RMM and PSA that will take you to where you want to be. Don't use that BS excuse of, I just need what's good enough for now. And don't be cheap in every which way of the word.
Unless you truly don't have any
agree
money,
with that
then take it
entirely.
along.
Don't be cheap with your clients, your vendors, meaning don't try to beat them down to the point where they may not be financially there in a year because they're not making any money. Be fair. And with your clients, charge them what you think you're worth. And if you think you're worth $35 a user, reevaluate your self-worth.
There you go.
Excellent. So I'm about to close, but before I do, I want to know what the heck Carlos is into. I see he's got
John?
black eel. He's got vials of black eel. He's got what's the other one? He's got ox blood. He's got a vial of ox blood, guys, and I'm not
Probably
even
something for hunting, I would say.
So you walk up to these animals, you stab them with that, and you pour what's...
Yes, absolutely. And I use their blood and their tint in it. When I say I sign my deals with blood, I mean it. That's not my blood. It's some animal's blood. Ox blood is fantastic to use as an ink.
No, I just thought I'd share. Carlos has some really weird things on his desk, guys, and then he's got his blood rag here.
Here's a box
Oh,
split.
man.
This is legitimate.
That is a really beautiful shade of red, to be completely honest. So thanks for attending. I hope this has been entertaining. I hope Carlos doesn't stab me with that after I'm no longer on camera. If you liked this, if you want to see more, go to mspwebinars.com. There is a way that you can sign up for subscriptions. You can click on the About button there, and it'll take you to my Patreon page. And when you sign up, you get access to a ton of bonus content. And I'm also working on some really awesome deals for people that are connected to my subscription.
I can attest to that. Oh crap! I can attest to that because.
Oh, I guess he kicked it, or something happened. Weird.
I can attest to Steve and the deal because I just signed with this vendor, and I have saved a tremendous amount of money on my subscription for it, and I will use this very well. So thank you, Steve, for that.
Thank you, Shiva. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend. I will see you next week for 2 webinars. You'll be able to see those webinars at mspwebinars.com along with links to register. Take care. Thanks, Andy and Shiva. Thanks to Zach, who had to take off unexpectedly when his internet died. And thank you to Errol. Thank you to Carlos for letting me use his office. Thanks to John for driving me out to Indiana. I don't know why. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one.